Marina.
And I'm Craig.
And we are from Semper. We are a garden design practice.
Semper comes from the Latin word for always, forever. And we like the idea that our gardens are always changing, forever shifting and moving and growing. So all of our gardens are kind of an experiment in time.
We both had previous careers before garden design. So I was a model maker for film and in particular stop motion animation.
And then I was a graphic designer. I think we both did about 11 years in our industries, and then we both decided it's kind of time for a career change. And I think both of us just wanted to be outside more in touch with kind of our environment.
I was in kind of film studios or model making studios, and I spent a lot of my lunch breaks exploring the Olympic Park and just really loved the landscapes there and really kind of thought about, so I wanted to combine like design with the natural world.
So all of our gardens are inspired by natural landscapes. I think it's really important to feel connected to the land around it, but also the kind of variety that you find within natural landscapes that you maybe wouldn't expect. For example, this garden was inspired by local hedgerows, which we thought were a really kind of abundant kind of variety within them that I think trying to capture that within a garden space really helps it feel part of the wider landscape.
Our clients are really keen cooks, so they really want to incorporate things that they can use in the kitchen. And also we wanted to capture that kind of edible hedgerow, kind of wild foraging feeling within this garden.
Yeah, because it's only a small space as well. I think we wanted to be able to provide space for things to grow to eat, but it would be kind of too space demanding to kind of grow vegetables in a traditional sense. So we wanted to pick things that were not only look good from the house, from the road, also could be cut flowers for the house, and also edible. I think we tried to combine all of those things within the palette. This one's quite interesting as well because it is a front garden essentially, but the fact that it kind of goes onto a road, and obviously it's a thoroughfare back and forth for the house, is not only kind of a kind of practical space, but something that we wanted to feel kind of, I guess, a chance to slow down within and enjoy as much as you would do for a traditional back garden. Yeah, I think as well as the kind of direct path that takes you from the front door to the front gate, kind of the islands of planting create this quite nice kind of repetitive flow of smaller pathways that kind of you naturally find yourself wandering in and out of and kind of getting different angles of the garden. I think it's a really interesting way to use the space. Garden spaces are important to us because they create a space to kind of remind us that we're part of something bigger, that we share a world with other living beings. I think a space to slow down, spend time nurturing plants, seeing what's enjoying those plants and kind of arriving to them and coming into a garden is a really kind of wholesome feeling that can really slow you down and connect to the bigger picture, make you reflect upon kind of what's important and how noticing the smaller things can make you feel part of something bigger. When designing a garden, we like to consider how the people who use the garden will use it and organise the space in a way that make it enjoyable to be in, but also to consider the surrounding area and how that garden can benefit the wider ecology, not only within the garden itself, but how it can connect other wild spaces and act as a corridor, as a centre for rich biodiversity.
Even in small spaces like this garden, it's still really possible to pack a lot in and to create many different habitats. This garden was inspired by hedgerows, which is a perfect example of how it can support a lot of ecology in an area, and within such a small space there can be many different species and many different creatures that depend on those species. So within the garden we've got different conditions, so we've really tried to respond to those areas. So over here we've got a downpipe that's creating a really wet area, so we're able to plant species that like to sit in more damp soil. And we've also got areas within the garden that are mounded, and we've mulched everything with the gravel, so it kind of creates that very sort of free draining, dry conditions.
Along the front boundary, we've tried to replicate a kind of English hedgerow, so there's a mix of native species that will kind of eventually form a semi-transparent boundary to try and kind of provide some privacy from the houses opposite and make it feel like a more immersive space.
So throughout the garden there's a matrix of grasses to create that kind of base of texture. So there's evergreen grasses, there's Carex divulsa, which is currently in flower at the moment, and then later in the season we have other grasses such as Deschampsia and Millennia popping up through to create more height and a different kind of sort of fluffy texture. We use garden lighting to highlight the textures within the planting and to illuminate key features in the garden like this magnificent magnolia. We like to consider the balance, so although we like to light pathways, for instance, for the humans that use the space, we also need to create those areas of dark so that the wildlife isn't affected by those lights.
When selecting lights, we prefer to use ones that point downwards rather than up, and warmer colours, and a kind of dimmer light that still acts as a kind of practical space, but it's not so bright that it's unnecessary. And wherever possible, we use timers or sensors to limit the hours that those lights are illuminating things, so that they are enjoyed when they're on, but they're not on for an unnecessary amount of time. For example, a floodlight that illuminates a tree, we would try to use a timer or a sensor so that it's only illuminating for a shorter period, so that you can still really appreciate the tree, but it's not going to affect wildlife later into the night.
In this garden we've used Corston lights that can be angled down, so we're using them to highlight the pathway, but we're also using them throughout the planting to highlight particular plants and different textures.
We like to select materials that age and weather over time, so we've selected the antique brass finish, which will only get better with age and really weather into the garden.
When selecting plants for your own garden, it's really nice to bring in plants that you can connect with on a personal level, or plants that can be useful to you, so things that you can cook with, plants that you can use as raw materials.
It's good to think about the wider landscape and how you can bring some of that into your own space.